Thank you. Mr. President, I am glad to join Senator Merkley, Senator Nelson, and Senator Reid on the floor today. I thank Senator Merkley for pulling us together here. We are here to say no. No to the industry lobbyists, no to their friends in Congress who are threatening a government shutdown if we won't roll back rules that protect consumers and protect the safety of our financial system. You know, it's a pretty neat trick. The lobbyists know they probably can't get a rollback of financial regulations passed out in the open where the American people can actually see what's happening and see which senators and which representatives voted to gut the rules that protect working families. So instead, they tack rollbacks onto must-pass legislation, like the upcoming government funding bill, to give their friends in Congress a lot of cover for voting yes. It's cynical. It's cynical and it's corrupt, but it usually works. Just last year, Citigroup lobbyists wrote a provision to blast a hole in Dodd-Frank. The part of the law that was blown up was called, and I'm quoting the title here, Prohibition Against Federal Government Bailouts of Swaps Entities. The idea behind the rule was pretty simple. If a big bank wanted to engage in certain kinds of risky deals, like the credit default swaps that had been at the heart of the 2008 crisis, they had to bear all of that risk themselves instead of passing it along to taxpayers. Now, the big banks wanted that rule repealed, and the only way to do it was to put it on a bill that had to pass or the government would shut down. And that is exactly what they did. For a year, Congressman Elijah Cummings and I worked to document the impact of that Citigroup amendment. And we finally got what we needed. The FDIC estimates that the provision written by Citigroup lobbyists last year that allows a few big banks to put taxpayers on the hook for risky swaps has an estimated value of almost $10 trillion. And who is gobbling up that $10 trillion of risk? Three huge banks: Citigroup, JP Morgan Chase, and Bank of America. Three banks, nearly $10 trillion. $10 trillion, a lot of risky business. These banks will happily suck down the profits when their high-stakes bets work out, and they will just as happily turn to the taxpayers to bail them out if there's a problem. All this because the lobbyists persuaded Congress to do just one little favor in a must-pass bill. And now, a year after the Citigroup amendment, there are rumors of new giveaways in the upcoming funding bill. Rollbacks that would make it harder for the government to stop the next AIG from taking down the entire economy. Rollbacks that would exempt many of the 40 largest banks in the country from tougher oversight. Rollbacks that would undermine the consumer agency's rules to clean up mortgage and auto lending markets. Rollbacks that would stop the agency from protecting consumers' rights if they're cheated on credit cards or checking accounts. Rollbacks that would allow financial advisors to continue lining their own pockets while robbing retirees of billions of dollars. Why are these rollbacks at the top of Congress's agenda? Are constituents flooding the phone lines, begging their senators to weaken the rules for financial institutions? Are they writing in by the thousands, insisting that their senators make it easier for people to get cheated? Of course not. Survey after survey has shown that hardworking Americans want stronger regulation of Wall Street and more accountability for CEOs who break the law. But like so many things around here, this process isn't about doing what hardworking Americans want. It's about pleasing the rich and powerful who are lined up for special favors. I know some of my Democratic colleagues are frustrated by all of the gridlock in Washington. They say Wall Street accountability is important, but I just want to get something done around here for a change. So let's go along with the Republicans and the special interests. Well, yeah, I want to get something done too. Who doesn't? But I didn't come here to carry water for Wall Street and a bunch of special interests. If Republicans think that it's time to talk about financial reform, then let's put it on the table. If the industry wants to push rollbacks, then I want to make it easier to send bankers to jail when they launder money or cheat consumers. If the industry wants to chip away at financial oversight, then I want to have a serious conversation on the record about breaking up the biggest banks. And if they're too scared to have that conversation out in the open, then senators shouldn't be handing out special favors behind closed doors. The upcoming debate about government funding bill is going to boil down to one question. Whose side are you on? Are you on the side of working families who got punched in the gut and want stronger rules for Wall Street? Or are you on the side of the giant financial institutions that broke the economy, got bailed out, and are once again trying to call the shots on Capitol Hill? Well, me, I'm with the families. And I'm ready to say no to the bank CEOs, no to the industry lobbyists, and no to all of their buddies here in Congress. Mr. President, I yield the remainder of my time to Senator Merkley.
Mr. President, really appreciate the remarks from the senior senator from Massachusetts, who has brought so much personal research in the course of her career and passion and insight to this battle, who put forward the idea of a Consumer Protection Bureau to Consumer Financial Protection Bureau to provide oversight of these predatory practices, and who's been such a watchdog about these practices. And I would just ask her before she leaves the floor, why is it that this discussion is happening right now in terms of policy writers on must-pass spending bills rather than happening in light of day with a committee hearing, a banking committee hearing where this can be fully discussed and debated?
Well, Senator, you raised the right question, but I think it's pretty obvious. If these proposals were debated out in public, where everyone in America could see them, they wouldn't pass. People don't want to line up to vote for fewer restrictions on Wall Street. They don't want to line up to vote for more opportunities to cheat American families. So instead, the idea is just tack it on something else that's going to move through. And then the question is, will people vote to keep the government open? And that gives a lot of people here in Congress who want to help the big financial institutions a lot of cover. And that is fundamentally wrong.
One of the things that we have had a lot of concern about is that the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which is making sure that predatory mortgages don't return, which were a key product that helped drive the collapse in 2007, 2008, that those practices could return if the ability of the CFPB to regulate them is diminished by changing its the governing structure of the CFPB, or by being able to shut down the funds that enable it to operate. Is that a good idea or a bad idea?
You know, the CFPB works. It works to help protect America's families. It works to help level the playing field. Already, that agency has been up and operational for just a little over 4 years, and it has forced the biggest financial institutions in this country to return more than $11 billion directly to families they cheated. It has handled more than 750,000 complaints against big financial institutions, against payday lenders, against college loan servicers that are cheating people, that are tricking people. And so, what is the response? While it's helping the American people, it's costing a handful of the biggest financial institutions in this country real money. And they're trying to find a way to make sure that the consumer agency doesn't do its job. They want to find a way to weaken that agency, to tie that agency down, to keep that agency from leveling the playing field for American families.
You know, each time you and I have talked about this, the number increases. I will say something like the CFPB has returned $3 billion, and you will say, oh, Senator, it's now $5 billion. And when I say, well, it's $5 billion, you remind me that it's now $8 billion. And here we are at 12?
I think it's
11. $11 billion returned. Now, I believe that number really includes real cash returned to individuals, but does not include the vast savings that have come from families that were never cheated in the first place.
I think one of the most important parts of this is the consumer agency said, when credit card companies, for example, got caught cheating people, it said to those credit card companies, look, you had people's addresses to be able to cheat them. Now you have people's addresses to send them checks, to pay them back. But it's just like you said, it was like a warning shot to everyone else out there cheating consumers. They said, this agency is on the level. This agency is tough. And so I think there are millions of Americans who don't get cheated, who don't get tricked in one scam or another, because we have a real watchdog out there, someone who's on the side of the American family.
Well, I thank you so much for your presenting this idea before you were here in the U.S. Senate, and for helping, well, stepping in to be the initial director to get it up and running, and now being here to make sure that we defend its ability to provide fair financial products for America's families. Products that enable families to build their wealth rather than having wealth-stripping scams hurt and destroy the finances of American families.
I only want to add, I am grateful for all the work you have done on behalf of American consumers and all the work you did to get the consumer agency through Congress and now to protect it when the big banks are coming after it. Thank you for all you do, Senator Merkley.